Ever wonder what it takes to live a life creatively? So do we. That's why we're here, to find out what clever people do to succeed in the arts, business, and education. I'm Cecily Korst, and this is the Trailer Talks. We're interviewing artists and educators, musicians, and thought leaders, at home and on the road. So come on, it's going to be a good trip. Hey, welcome to the trailer. Come on in. Today, we're in the trailer with Raegan Payne, a writer living in Los Angeles, and we're talking about her creative life. Tell me about your journey thus far.
I guess I've always been writing something since I was a little girl, in journals and whatnot at first, and then writing plays. But actually, I went to school, I was pre-vet, and I went to a liberal arts school, and so in my first semester I had to take a theater class, and in that class they made me, one of our assignments was we could choose to write something and then act it out, and so I did that and kind of took immediately, and it felt really natural, and when I performed it went off really well and people wanted to see it again. And I kind of connected all those things I had done as a kid and realized that yeah, I was a pretty nerdy kid. Like, I was good in school, but this is where I felt like a passion. So I've always kind of been a performer with the writing, but the writing just, it felt right. As far as the good muse is concerned, I always volunteered, and I always kind of thought that people who ran nonprofits needed more attention paid to them. Mm-hmm. And then I was in LA, first Thanksgiving, couldn't fly home to Kentucky because plane tickets are ridiculous. Mm-hmm. They're ridiculous to get home. And so I was like, why don't I just walk down to Skid Row, which was only 2 blocks away, and volunteer at the homeless shelter, and I asked a friend to do it. And they were like, oh, well, do you think they're going to try to talk to you? You know, like all these questions. I'm kind of fearful about the homeless, and I realized that this person just wasn't volunteering because they were scared and they had never done it before. And I thought, what if you could take the fear out of it? What if you could tell them or show them what it was like first, and so they could read it and go, oh, that's what it's going to be like. Well, yeah, I'll go. And so that was kind of the concept, and I knew how to write, didn't know how to film so much, so I just started volunteering and writing about it.
You studied theater at Oxford.
Yeah.
How did you make that jump? It sounds like from vet school to England.
When I decided to jump over and do theater and writing and acting, I just decided, like, let's really go for it, and I committed to doing all that. And then there were several programs to apply to, but I had always been interested in traveling abroad. My favorite plays were English. I was obsessed with Shakespeare, so I was like, let's apply to England and see what programs we can get into. And I got into the British American Drama Academy's Midsummer Oxford program to study. It's like Shakespeare intensive, and it was amazing. I would love to, like, spend, I don't know, days, weeks there. I just wrote a children's book that actually involves Oxford.
So what's your creative process like?
I try not to censor, because I find that even when I'm teaching people to write, that when they censor themselves, you can't even get anything on the page. You lose the best stuff, because sometimes it's that intuitive nature that produces the best work. So I get everything out, and then I'll go back and look at it and say, well, that doesn't work, that does. And I'll literally do notes and outlines for months before I start doing a scripted thing. As far as the good muse is, I'll find a nonprofit online that really inspires me, or someone will recommend something, and then I'll try to line up a day to work with them, and crazy stuff happens.
What of your personal story informs your work?
So much of it. I mean, I've done so many crazy things. I've done so many different survival jobs just to, be able to keep doing creative stuff, that I think, people can say, oh, I hate going to the survival job, or I hate having to do this because it's not creative. But in those things that I've done, or different volunteer activities, things that have really, like, pushed me outside my comfort zone is where I find the most inspiration. Like at a certain job, I'll have a coworker that then becomes a character in a play later on. So that's kind of where I find inspiration. It's just people in my life. I love getting out and doing new things. That's another reason I do the good news, is like to meet people and like see what's going on in the world, not just stay behind my computer.
What's the hardest volunteer job that you've done?
It's different. There's so many different kinds of hard. For example, there is being in a bikini in the middle of the LA Convention Center, taking a cold shower for PETA for over 2 hours, where you're just shaking and getting hypothermia, and all these men are walking by, and all of a sudden they stop. And they're like, "What are you doing in there?" I was like, "You know what I'm doing here." You can see me shaking. Or, you know, there's physically hard stuff, like, you know, sanding an old house from turn of the 20th century. Like, you know, so there's all different kinds of hard. There's emotionally hard. Fostering kittens for 2 weeks and then having to take them back to the shelter and give them up in the tears. And so there's all different kinds of hard, and there's all different kinds of good. Like, people ask me to pick my favorite, and I was like, it's like picking your favorite kid. Like, they're different and they're wonderful for all those reasons. So.
You're an advocate for so many other people and organizations. Who's your biggest advocate? I
have different kind of advocates. My friends obviously are always like, "This is cool, what are you doing, can we come along?" My brother's very, very instrumental because he is like my reality check. My inspiration, I guess, is my grandfather, who's no longer with us, but he kind of set me on the journey, and so I literally probably every day think of him in some respect. Am I living up to what he would want me to do? Am I doing as many kind things as he did in his lifetime? Like, that's the person I think of the most.
What was last year's pinch me moment for you?
I love any time my plays are done. If I can go see them done, I'm sitting there in the audience going, "This is really funny. Who wrote that?" "Oh, I did." "Oh my God." "She's so great." You know, that's, if that happens, then that's fantastic.
That's cool.
Yeah.
All of the things that you've done, and you are what we like to call a multi-hyphenate, because it's writer, actress, volunteer, and blogger. It's amazing. But what, of all of those things, and in all the different audiences that you have, what do you think resonates most?
It's interesting. I think it is really consistent across all the mediums, is that it's those moments of truth. Even when you're acting, playing someone different, if you're pulling from an experience that you've had, or you know, volunteering with something resonates, or you know, you really feel it. I think that people identify with that. I see it honestly a lot in my plays. When I see my plays done, the plays that I wrote that were kind of based on real experiences are the ones that, like, people are like, "Oh my God, you just had them act out a conversation I had yesterday. It's exactly the same conversation." I was like, "Yeah, because it's exactly the same conversation that I had to sit through," you know? So I think that everyone resonates with those really human truths about relationships and family and everything. So I try to be truthful. I try to, you know, tell what my experience was, or the truth or whatnot.
What's the hardest thing that you've had to do thus far in your journey?
I think, honestly, I mean, if we're being really honest, just surviving as an artist. You know, the arts, you don't, early on in your career, get paid enough just to do that. You don't. No one does, as far as I know. So, you know, it's just finding those other jobs, those wonderful other employers who are like, "I love that you're an actor. I love that you're a writer. You know, can you help us out with this? We'll give you flexible hours." I mean, I think anybody can say that just the act of surviving and keeping up, you know, the mission to do what you want to do is the hardest part of the journey early on. And so, you know, you survive for however many years, and you just keep going until it hits, and until that's all you have to do. And what a glorious day that'll be. But no, I think what's great about that is that when you're doing all these other things, again, you're pulling from that experience and learning from it.
So what does success look like for you?
Success, I think, for me would be continuing to produce new, creative, kind of like boundary pushing work. When I say boundary pushing, I mean my personal boundary. I love that idea of constantly being challenged. That's what's great about a creative life, is that you're never like, oh, I've done this a million times and this is going to be so easy. No, it's constantly like learning, and even if you write another novel, it's a different subject, you're pushing yourself even farther. And that's what success is to me. It's like constantly being challenged and constantly kind of rising to that.
So what advice do you have for other people who are pursuing a creative life?
I guess I'd tell them to stick with it no matter what. It does take a long time. It's you grow and you get better and you change, and you have to stick it out for those changes and for those things that kind of make you grow as an artist. And then the other thing I'd say is learn to roll and move with anything. Don't get stuck in one genre, one role, one hyphenate. You know, you want to like be this multidimensional person that can kind of keep moving no matter what happens. So that's what I tell people, just keep going.
That was a peek inside of Raegan's life and journey. You can find out more about Raegan Payne on Facebook, Twitter, and at her websites, Raegan Payne and thegoodmuse.com. While you're out surfing, check out our website at thetrailertalks.com. I'm Cecily Korst. Join us for the next road trip.